July 25, 2026. The Jamaica Constabulary Force alongside the US Marshals and the FBI would all close in on one location. The person they were about to arrest had been so skilled that they had managed to avoid all three agencies for over 1 year, hiding out in Jamaica and thinking they were safe. But scamming over $32 million from the American government does have its consequences. And as they kicked down her door, nobody would know that better than Elaine Escoe, the Jamaican woman who single-handedly made most scammers in the world look like children. So much so that she literally ended up on the FBI most wanted list. But how exactly does one woman steal $32 million and more importantly manage to avoid the police for years while doing it? Well, when you see what happened, you will understand why this was actually one of the easiest scams to pull off. And if she had just done one thing that most of us would have probably done, she just might have gotten away with it. Because back in the beginning, Elaine Escoe was born in Jamaica, and at just 9 years old, she made the move to South Florida with her family. Like many other Jamaicans chasing the American dream, like many immigrant kids her age, she was working twice as hard to prove that she belonged. Graduating high school with a 3.8 GPA and going on to university where she picked up not one but 2 degrees. 2 degrees that would serve her in the most diabolical ways. One in psychology and the other in finance. And while her parents may have thought that they were setting her up for a bright future with this education, they had no idea how this knowledge was really going to be used. After graduating college, Elaine started building out a crazy business portfolio, having her hands in several companies. She had one named RBA Global, another one named Life Concierge, an event planning business, and even an eyelash business called Lux Lashes. And on the surface, this woman looked like she was doing exactly what she was supposed to be doing as a Jamaican, building something for herself overseas. But behind these companies, something else was starting to take shape. And one day there was an opportunity that would change everything. In the spring of 2020, the world would change as the C-19 virus hit and everybody was quarantined. And while certain third world countries may not have been as lucky, many of you know that in America, the government explicitly set out to give its citizens millions of dollars to keep them afloat during the pandemic. And it wasn't just citizens receiving these free benefits. They also had packages for businesses as well to ensure that the economy did not completely crash. Billions of dollars sitting there just waiting to go to any business owners who said they needed help. And maybe you would think that this was easy to take advantage of. But keep in mind, this is the US government and they already know what you're planning. So if you try to outsmart them to get extra money, they will probably know. But when you've spent your entire life and education dedicating yourself to the craft of business like Elaine did, there's a certain level of expertise that the average person does not have. And one day, she had an idea. Elaine's first move would come through something known as the Paycheck Protection Program, which was one of the initiatives dedicated to ensuring that small businesses could survive the pandemic. She decided that she would use one of her own companies, RBA Global, to file an application, except putting together numbers that made the company look a lot more in need than it actually was, using her special methods to file the documents. And this was just a test, but you could imagine the surprise on her face when it came back, and just like that, the money came through. No red flags or a phone call asking her questions, just a straight wire transfer landing in her account. And once this woman saw how smoothly it went, something went off in her head that made her realize that there was nothing standing between her and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so all the other companies I named that she had, she filed for those too, and lo and behold, the money appeared. And keep in mind, these sums of money were going up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. But she did not have an infinite number of companies, and so she decided to expand this operation bigger than herself. Over time, she pulled in 5 other people: Alfred, Cher, Gino, James, and Latoya. And she would get the paperwork done for all of these individuals, stating that they are legitimate business owners and need their payout. And the system continued to work over and over. And with all the money they made, honestly, they genuinely could have stopped here. But if you're making hundreds of thousands, why would you stop? Why not go for the millions? Well, maybe if Elaine did that, her life would not have crashed and burned. By 2021, when the government rolled out something called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, followed by at least 2 more COVID programs where people were getting money, Elaine had officially taken advantage of every single one. And according to police, she was now running an entire operation taking advantage of 4 COVID programs at once. Fake IRS tax documents, fabricated bank statements, employees invented out of thin air who literally never existed. Every new program that was opened up to help people, to her it was just a brand new challenge. And by the time it was all said and done, over 90 fake business requests for government money had been sent out in just a year and a half. And these 90 fake applications had given her over $29 million, and that was just from one program. The others gave her $1.2 million and $3.8 million respectively, which is altogether $32 million of taxpayer money right into her pockets. This Jamaican girl in a year and a half had gained more net worth than most rappers. But in the field of scamming, getting the money is only half of the job, because the funds are useless if you get caught and don't get to keep them. And to be honest, initially she actually did a fairly decent job, with her and her co-conspirators moving their payments between each other's businesses and using blank checks to disguise where the money was really coming from and where it was really going. However, even if your big crimes are completely hidden, it's always the things you don't expect that end up tripping you up in the end. In May of 2024, Elaine ended up getting into some separate legal trouble for something completely different from her main operation. Apparently, unrelated to her government scam, she was actually trying to secure a loan for one of her businesses, a simple $50,000 line of credit. However, perhaps because she just couldn't help herself trying to get more out of the situation, she ended up doctoring the statements and overstating the amount of money her business had so that she would be more likely to get the loan. The company ended up catching this, rejecting the application and sending her to court. And of course, if you do this, this is a crime, so she was given a simple 6 months in jail. However, the officers had no idea that this simple crime committed by this woman would actually lead them to something far bigger. And it was as Elaine had just finished serving her sentence that somebody would stumble across something insane, and those people were in the FBI. Some figures did not make sense, and the more they found was the more they dug deeper and deeper, and their jaws dropped when they discovered what they saw. Suddenly, what appeared as a victimless crime was now becoming one of the biggest cases they had worked in the year, and it wasn't long before a warrant was issued for her arrest, along with all of her partners in crime, making it known that they are to be brought in on more than 50 combined counts of conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, and everything connected to the $32 million that were stolen. And not only was there a warrant for her arrest, but it was also made known that she was legally obligated to appear in court on June 5. But when that day came, Elaine did not show up. They searched but could not find her, having no idea where she could have disappeared to in this time. But there's one place a Jamaican knows they can always go to when times are rough, and that is right back home. As soon as she would learn about her situation, Elaine wasted no time in jumping on a plane and heading right back to Jamaica, the island she had not seen in years. And while she was here on our beautiful island, the government decided that before they came after her, they were going to make an example out of every single one of her friends. Alfred Davis, 19 years in jail. Cher Davis, 7 years. Latoya Clark, 6 years. And everybody else being handed out charges like candy. But the woman behind the entire scheme was still not found. And despite their best efforts for over an entire year, Elaine Escoe simply did not exist. No matter how hard they looked, they had no success in locating her. But that was because not only was she in Jamaica, but she had also been using the fake name Harley Newman, as well as other aliases like Annie and Annie Palmer. She had tried to stay hidden while the 5 people she left behind took the fall for her. But justice was about to find her in a way that absolutely nobody saw coming. Just recently, in June of 2026, the FBI decided to try something a bit different. If they couldn't come to Jamaica, they would use Jamaicans to do their work for them. And so, in order to assist their goal of eliminating fraud, they introduced something called the Most Wanted Fraudsters List, a public list highlighting some of the country's biggest fraud fugitives, specifically targeting the people who thought they'd successfully vanished. But there was something special about this list, because on June 8th, when Elaine Escoe's name and face were broadcasted all over, it also said in bold right underneath it that anybody who could provide information leading to her arrest would be given $150,000 US. And listen, I don't care which Jamaican you are, you could all be the madman on the side eye road what can't read. The moment you see that many zeros, people from primary school, high school, people who hadn't seen her in 15 years were definitely going to come forward and say something. And within just 2 months of people cracking, the Jamaican authorities eventually gathered enough information, and by July 25th, just 2 weeks ago, in a coordinated effort between the FBI, US Marshals, the US Embassy in Kingston, and the Jamaica Constabulary Force, Elaine Escoe was swiftly apprehended by all of these forces, thrown in the back of a squad car, and shipped right back to Florida. This woman, who had 2 degrees, multiple companies, and a real business portfolio, now being shipped back to America on charges for international crimes. And since this literally happened like 2 weeks ago, we are obviously still waiting to see what sentence she will get. But if her friend only got 19 years. Well, we can imagine it's not looking too hot for her. And the craziest part of it all is that if she had just stopped when she reached the first few million, she would still be rich today. But such is the life of those who let greed rule their intelligence. And speaking of scammers who built empires worth millions, the very first scammer in Jamaica and the person to introduce lottery scamming to all of us was a man who made so much money in such a short time and became so untouchable with politicians in the government that everybody viewed him as an untouchable king. But that's why it was so insane that one day the police would show up at his house and he was found dead in his driveway. And if you want to learn the full story of the first scammer, Kenrick Bebe Stevenson, click the video on your screen right now. Subscribe to the channel for more content, and as always, this case has been decoded.